Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy, and this is of particular note if you drive an electric vehicle. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by Sleeping Warrior, 10th Man, Neil, the Adam Meakin, Refracted Curvature, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good morning, good morning.
Afternoon,
hey,
everyone.
good morning.
Yo, yo.
Morning.
Good to have you all. Just say a quick hello to Arwin, and then we'll kick off with some housekeeping questions. Hello, Arwin.
Hello.
Hello, good to have you. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere-edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
No.
No.
Wow, that was quick considering the last two shows in a row we've spent 40 straight minutes on that question. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
No.
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 That's why it was quick, because we spent 40 minutes the last two shows on it.
Okay, you and your reference frames have been ruined. Any evidence of the distance to the Sun?
No.
No.
3 Arwinian units. That's it.
Arwinian units, arbitrarily assigned units of distance that are based on rainbow distances from memory.
No, it's apparent distances. Get it right. It's not actual distances.
Bit quiet. You some way away from your mic or something?
It's apparent distances, not actual
Okay, thank you.
distances.
I didn't need you on top of it. Jesus. Yes, one extreme to the other isn't going to help either, but thank you. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
No.
Nope. I got Coffee House saying that there's a relationship between the weight of objects and the force required to keep them apart.
What's required to keep them apart? Oh, no, this is new. What do you mean, apart?
So I asked him which gravity. He said the one that repeated tests show exists, that there is a relationship between the weight of objects and the force required to keep them apart.
Okay.
I'm not even entirely sure what I even read.
I'd love to know what the
don't even know.
repeated tests are. That sounds like experimentation. When you're talking about the physical and natural world and you say test, then contextually that means experiment. So I'd love to see these experiments. Not that they will exist.
I'll ask him.
Yeah,
I'll
why
ask
don't
him and
you
I'll
ask
let
him
you
for
know.
it?
Did you say his channel name was Coffee House?
Here we go.
Yes.
Wait for it.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Well, he has no grounds for that statement.
Can't you jazz up these jokes a bit?
I was doing some research the other day. And I actually found out how Moses made coffee.
Here we go.
How was that?
Did
we
he
go.
use his staff, or did he do it by himself?
No, he brews it.
Terrible, terrible. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
No.
I like it, Adam.
Not
My
yet.
son thinks that astrophysicists have declared the sun plasma.
plasma. So what violation of natural law by way of gas not expanding into a space it's got available to it? No, definitely not. Right, molten iron core, any evidence thereof?
No.
Gas pressure without a container. Any evidence that you can have that?
No.
Any evidence of the R value? We're going to make it to the end. I can't believe it. First time it's Thursday.
No.
It exists only in terrestrial refraction formula.
So that'd be
That's
no.
not evidence.
Fair enough. It's
Well,
correct,
you could
Darwin.
think of it as evidence, but yeah.
Does that conclude housekeeping?
After 6 minutes, I cannot quite believe it. So we've got a bit of outstanding with Righteous. Did you manage to watch Sleeping Warriors video, Righteous?
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got a good idea on what the claim was being made versus what you stated to us in terms of my response, go forth and experiment. Would you suggest that that is or isn't a representation of what I was suggesting you did, first of all?
Right.
That's a question. I said just go forth and test it if you think that there was an incoherent dielectric accelerative force.
Well, he already tested it, but so we just go forward from here. We just accept what he did and we take it from here.
Did you get a chance to watch it?
Yeah, I scrubbed through it. Somebody posted it in Discord later, I found.
Oh, good. So can we go through it now? I know you can't see it, but if you stick it on live view, you might be able to watch it at like 10-second delay, right?
Or I can
Wow,
just
2 or
come on
3.
Google Hangouts. Because there's no
Was that a
delay in
yes,
Google
Reg?
Hangouts. Yeah, let me turn Skype on. I'll come on the Hangouts. Wait, you guys can see presentations on the Hangouts, right?
Yeah.
All right, let me join. I got to turn Skype
While
on.
he's joining it, are we on, Nathan?
Yeah, the live view's got it as well, but to save his putting another screen up and potentially getting feedback, we'll just wait for him to join the Hangout and then we can all see what you're seeing. And the audience has now got on a nice big presentation with Zach's handsome silhouette and buoyancy. And here we go.
Okay, so this is
just give him a couple of seconds just to get settled into the Hangout. Can you hear us, Righteous? You're on mute in the Hangout currently.
Right, thanks for that. Okay, I'm good to go.
In your own
Okay,
time,
so-
Anthony, go ahead.
So I heard what was the conversation in the after show the other day, and I heard you say words that I thought, right, I can test this. I heard Nathan say, "Go forth and go forth and science that," and that was the correct response. And I thought, right, I'm going to go and do that. I'm now going to go and do this because 18 months ago, or maybe no, I think it was about 10 months ago, maybe 12 months ago, recently. I'd already done this test in the background because Bob had made some claims and I thought I can test that. And then I went back to Bob and I said, look, I've done this test and it does not do what you say. Can you show me and support your claim? And nothing then happened. Fast forward a chunk of time, I can't remember exactly. And then I hear you say what you said in the Hangout yesterday. And on screen, I've got Bob's words, which I'm not going to talk about for this demonstration. I'm going to talk about what you said because your words is what I want to come back to if I can. Let me go to it. Your words were, there might be more variables. And Nathan said, okay, fine, we can science that because we can. Because you said there might be more variables. And then Nathan said, if electricity, then egg displacement. So your suggestion was that there might have been an extra variable that I didn't account for, therefore reducing the claim from an independent variable, the cause of an effect, into a correlation for something that was there, but I didn't realize at the time, and therefore we need to science it. And that's a legitimate and it's a valid thing that we can test, because if there is something there, maybe we can manipulate that specific something. And like you said, keep the relative density the same. And we can literally just pass the current through, the charge, the current, the voltage, whatever that descriptive word is. If we flick it on and off to see, does it cause any acceleration in any direction? If it's capable of causing an acceleration, we can then either say, yes, there is a factor that I didn't control and I should have done, and it's now a correlative effect, or no, there's not. And I didn't have to control something because it wasn't there in the first place that needed to be controlled. But we can prove one of two statements is either true, or false. It's either true that the voltage, current, amperage, whatever, does cause acceleration, or it's true that it does not. So that's why I decided to test. So I'll just press play in the background. So when I got it all rigged up, I needed 3 hands, so I had to put the switch on this little board so that I had somewhere to hold the camera whilst pressing making the connection. Otherwise, I need another hand. But when I flick the switch, I'm expecting to see some kind of movement with respect to the egg and the voltage going through it. Now, what I demonstrated later on in the clip is that when the voltage is on and the light's lit, there's what's it called, electrolysis. And there's bubbles coming off one of the contacts, and that proves that there is passing electricity through the solution, and the egg is subjected to that current flow or that voltage or the amperage or whatever word. So when I go back to your words, when you said there might be more variables, I just wanted to ask you, do you accept that the variable that might be suggested that might have been pervading, do you accept that I tested that variable? And if I did test it, do you accept that it wasn't something that was causing an acceleration? So I couldn't have controlled it, even if it did exist, or it simply doesn't exist and I therefore couldn't control that either. Do you accept either of those two positions based on the evidence?
Hold on a sec. All right, I had my dad talking during the last part. Do I accept what?
Do you accept that if there was the variable there in the first place, it wasn't significant enough for me to control it because it didn't cause any acceleration, so I couldn't control it, or alternatively, it just isn't there at all, and I don't have to control something that's not there. Therefore, we accept the null hypothesis that the charge or current or voltage or amperage or whatever descriptive word that is the claim that there might be a flow, an acceleration caused by a flow, isn't there. So we can accept that that's not true. Do you agree or disagree with that based on the evidence?
Well, from the moment, yeah. From what you showed, yes.
Great.
I have to
So
go
now
with this. Go on.
So can we accept now that if there is this downwards acceleration bias, it's either so small that it doesn't cause acceleration or it just doesn't exist at all, but it's not the reason why there is a downwards acceleration, and it's not the reason, and relative density is not subject to it. It is comprehensive in itself. It doesn't need any electric current or voltage, and the claim therefore fails unless there's new evidence to support the assertion.
Right. Going forward, right? So we got to account this and go forward with accounting this.
Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah,
that was brilliant. That I wasn't expecting that. I thought there'd have been some refutation of that something I'd not done right or something that. But thank you so much for being straight. That's nice to see for once.
Right.
Once? Hold on. Don't imply you hasn't always been straight. That's perfectly acceptable.
Sorry, I didn't mean to imply that. I meant to imply that I thought there was going to be more resistance against the assertion that is pushed around a lot, that this incoherent dielectric acceleration thing, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, okay. Just accept it. There was no resistance. You turned the electricity on and nothing happened.
Nothing. Now, to be fair, Nathan did point out that after I put the salt in at this and then flicked it on and off, it did look like it was moving, but I think it's because it was causing disturbance and it hadn't settled. The pressure gradient hadn't settled and it was still finding its level. And I did wonder if somebody would have brought that up, but no one's brought it up. But let's just be aware that when this egg's bobbing up and down and I flick the power back on, it's still bobbing up and down. It's not come to equilibrium yet. It's not found its level. So it does appear that way, but no one's mentioned it. But I'm just glad that we've been able to progress the matter now. Hopefully we can say, well, it doesn't do this. It's not powerful enough if it exists at all. And if it doesn't exist, then it doesn't exist.
Very good. He did actually concede immediately. As soon as you brought it up, he said, yeah, I watched the video and moving forward, I accept that. It was conceded before he made. I'm glad you still summarised the example because the audience can see this in isolation now, which is great.
That's it. I wanted the audience to see it.
However, I did kind of hope also that, there'd be some sort of challenge to it. But, why would there be? It makes sense that there wouldn't be. Thank you, Righteous. Seem like a reasonable guy. Why wouldn't you just go, yeah, well, you've shown that it doesn't do anything. What more can I say?
I got a question for Sleeping Warrior. So when they say it's negligible, if it's so negligible, and they use that word themselves, the proponents of this, then how do they even spot it if it's negligible when in your test nothing happened?
I guess maybe at the microscopic level, there's an argument that Brownian motion might have been influenced slightly. I mean, if you got it down to the microscopic level, maybe there is, but it's not the thing that pervades, that separates up from down as it's asserted, and it's not the thing that relative density is dependent on like it's asserted. It isn't. If it was, then I should be able to flick that switch and the egg would burst out of there and make an obvious movement. But if it made any movement at all, it's tiny, and therefore it doesn't pervade. It doesn't cause the up from the down. It doesn't. It's just not. It's just not worth dwelling on. Yes, it exists. Yes, it's there, but it doesn't pervade. That's the point.
So this static charge is so negligible that it doesn't do anything, but we want to throw it in there as a causal agent, is what that side is proposing. Is that right?
That was the suggestion, and I wanted to remove it as a potential cause, and I wanted to remove it as the pervading factor, because it isn't. The pervading factor is the density of the object relative to the density of the medium, and that causes the acceleration that we mistakenly believe is based on gravity or based on bending space-time. These things, we can test them in the real world. We can comply and adhere to scientific method. It's repeatable, it's observable, it's verifiable. Raichi 50 has repeated it, got the same results. Everybody watching this video can repeat it, get the same results. Ultimately, how many times do you have to flick the switch before you accept that the switch is what caused the light to come on? Or do you want to say, well, maybe there's something else that's causing it that's between the switch and the light bulb, and it's just correlation? It's not. If you flick the switch and the light comes on, then that is the cause of the light being illuminated. And if you didn't flick the switch, the light wouldn't come on. Now, obviously, with a light switch, we know there's a bit more to it. But if there is more to it, we need to support it. Oh, look, there's a wire that connects them. Oh, look, there's flow that comes in. Yeah, we understand how electrics works. But when there's nothing more to it and we can't evidence any more to it, why is it that the evidence and Occam's razor can't apply? Why do we have to insist that we need to put maths to this to start explaining it? No, we can demonstrate it.
Everybody but Bob.
See,
Nobody mentioned Bob.
Everybody but Coffee Hose.
there you go.
Which I got an answer out of him about these tests. He sent a link. I told him that I wasn't going to rummage through his evidence. It was his claim, so state it. And he stated that there have been repeated measurements that show a force is required to keep two objects apart. That force has a consistent-ish relationship to the object's weight and the distance between them.
Yeah, that's his claim. Yeah, we know what his claim is.
Yeah,
We asked
that's
him
his
to
claim,
provide
yeah.
the tests. So he just repeated the claim rather than providing anything, and repeated that there were these tests in existence. Again, we knew
Yes.
they claimed that, but what he was being charged with by you was to actually produce them.
Right.
He's
And
also
he posted
substituted.
a link that
He's
he
also
summarized into
just one
that.
more thing. Sorry, he's substituted tests for measurements now. That sounds very much like maths. Measurements of something that must be occurring. We've got to see what's occurring first before we quantify it. But if there's a test, then we've got a qualification of what's actually happening and why it's actually happening. So that's what we need. Not just another claim or the repetition of his original claim that he said it got tests, now measurements. Okay, well, what are they? Let's see them. What's the issue?
Right. He's explaining the cause and effect of force that he can't even claim or actually measure. He's stating that there's something there that isn't there, that he can't even put his finger on, and he says that the force is consistent-ish. So it's not relevant to everything. It's only consistent-ish to
Sorry,
certain things that
consistent-ish.
they're-
Sorry.
Yeah.
These people, these con men. Sorry, what does consistent mean?
It's consistent. It's always.
Like even throughout.
Yeah.
Right. So when you say consistent-ish, that would mean it's not even throughout, therefore not consistent then.
Right, which would mean that his repeated measurements wouldn't
Or
be
inconsistent.
consistent at all
Inconsistent
through
then.
anything. Right.
So he's got a consistent force that's inconsistent. Oh, that's really useful. That's really great. Where are the tests that he was charged with getting?
He posted a link. The link is called the Big G Redux, Solving the Mystery of Perplexing Result. And it's just the universal constant of gravitation, G, affectionately known as Big G to distinguish it from little g. The acceleration due to Earth's gravity is a fundamental constant of nature.
Meanwhile,
it's
clouds,
just-
meanwhile, helium balloons, meanwhile, things go up. What, acceleration of the gas go down, go boom boom towards Earth is a constant? Yeah, that was debunked 107 years ago.
Yeah, I didn't read through the entire link. I told him just to summarize his evidence, and that's what he came up with. But I'm sure if I were to read through this fundamental constant of nature, I would prove that it's not a fundamental constant of nature.
No, it isn't. If he's saying that the fundamental constant of nature is that things go down, go boom boom, gas doesn't go down, go boom boom. I'm looking at clouds right now. I release a helium balloon, it goes up. So, no, that's not a universal constant. That's why it was superseded by Einstein 107 years ago, almost.
I mean, I'm very fed up with just arguing this point because it's circle jerking completely over and over. They'll say a million different words for the same thing, and it means all the same nonsense. So,
well, no. What's actually happened, though,
just
Chaos,
don't
is in the pre-show you said, oh, well, you were trying to argue with them with the gravity thing, and they wouldn't concede. Well, now we're into a position where they need gas to go down, go boom boom. So what are they using to claim it? Coffee House, the guy you were talking about in the pre-show, the one that wouldn't concede on gravity, now, as predicted, needs to use an assertion that things go down towards the ground 9.8 meters per second, exactly as predicted. Hence, he refused to concede it when you pointed all these things out, because he needs to appeal to it at a later date. So they cannot possibly concede when they're wrong, because even though they're wrong, they're still needing to appeal to it as he is appealing to it now, and saying he's got tests to prove his claim that there's gravity, and the tests are merely a reassertion of his claim that things go down towards the ground with a constant that is defied by clouds.
Well, I like the way they just throw in the word fundamental. How do they throw in the word fundamental without any backing?
Because it's their pseudoscience fundamental. It's got to be fundamental to their pseudoscience. It has to be, or else it blows everything out of proportion.
Well, what makes something fundamental is your citations, your tests, repeatability. So let's see it.
Right. Yeah. I don't even. There's in the link that he posted. There was something about portion balance. I don't really know anything about that. I would obviously have to read into it, but that, I guess, was the way that they measured this fundamental force that's required to keep two objects apart. I don't know.
No, see, it's a pseudo force. It doesn't exist, but they got really smart about it. Let's just refer to it as a fundamental force. And every time we get challenged, well, it's just a fundamental aspect of it. This is how things work. And then they go on with their lies. Everybody knows that. I mean, that's the way they come across.
I don't even know how to start to reapproach his claim in a way that I just trap him. You know, I don't even know. My brain melted when I started to read that because it just makes no sense to me.
I'll tell you why.
I don't know how.
I'll tell you why. Because I'll tell you why. Because they whistled past the graveyard when you won. Now you said that at that point, well, they didn't have a response. No. At that point, you won. Yeah, they didn't concede because, as I said, they had to appeal to it later. But you won. Now you're saying, well, they continued anyway. Yeah, that makes your brain melt. Or it did for me back in the day. Now it doesn't. I'll happily rattle off and count the number of times I have to re-stress the exact same winning point. I take great pleasure in it. Yeah, sometimes with people like Conspiracy Cats, I've got up to 100+ repetitions of the same exact point. With them in cognitive pain, with me just making the same exact point that they can't get around, with them squirming and weaseling trying to get away from it. Now for you did it once. They whistle past the graveyard, and then later down the line, they start appealing to the exact same thing that they wouldn't concede originally. So he's appealing to a gravitational test. And what's the test? My description of a universal down-go-boom-boom force? That's not a test. It's just your assertion that we've got a unilateral force that doesn't apply to clouds, because they're not going down-go-boom-boom, and the gas around them isn't forcing them up either. So no, that was debunked 107 years ago, the original point they wouldn't concede. Yeah, that's why they wouldn't concede it. So round we go, do-si-do, here we go. Hold your partner. Back to gravity again. Oh, why? Oh, didn't we debunk this 10 minutes ago? Yeah, let's start counting off how many times I have to point out the gas don't go down, go boom, boom.
Round your partner, skip to the loo.
Don't worry, Nathan. I'll handle it. Thank you, guys.
You got nothing to handle. You're fine. You're not going to lose any sleep over this either. You know, unless you frustrate yourself with the fact that they won't concede. That's their cognitive pain. That's where you're at. You need to start recognising what is their cognitive pain. When you're going, it fries my brain that I've debunked it, and then you can't get them to concede. You carry on 5 minutes with a conversation, and then they're back to appealing to something they haven't proved and has been debunked. It melts your brain, you said. Nah, that's their cognitive pain. Point it out to them. They will, I absolutely assure you, project it straight onto you. They'll tell you you're in pain and that you've lost the argument. Yeah, understand and recognise what's actually occurring. These people are mentally tortured. Now, when we get various updates about the fundamentalist religious zealots on the anti-flat earth side of this argument, they tell us about how stressful it is, and they need time off from it. It's that stressful.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
actually
you see this-
something me and Righteous were talking about. Like, what's my end game here? You know, what am I trying to get out of these people when I explain these things to them? And I think I've just been struggling it because I really want them to go, okay, you win, and I go, oh shit, yeah, you know I did, you know, but I believe that I don't see it that way anymore because I'm just gonna hit them with the facts and it's all on them. You know,
Yeah.
I did my job and that's it. You know, I won just by hitting them with the facts.
Yeah, don't fret it. When they won't concede, they're left with a position that's been debunked, how it's been debunked, and their original belief that they want to cling on to. That's described as cognitive dissonance. Well, that's a pain that they have to suffer the burden of. It's not your burden. They'll project it onto you, but don't suffer their burden.
The cognitive pain is so strong in these people, and it's very simple litmus test right at the beginning. I did it last week. I always do this. Can you define a straight versus a curved line? When they can't do that, they're living with the pain, not you.
Didn't we come up with that phrase, share your pain?
Yeah, this is why. Yeah, like I say, we get various updates from people, and we go, where did that guy disappear to? And then they'll come back and say, I just couldn't cope with the stress of it. It was doing my head in. I couldn't cope. So I had to get away from it for a while. And you're like, yeah, get away from what? I don't feel like I need to get away from anything. I do this daily. Does it leave me stressed? Do I lose sleep over it? Do I? Hell, no, I do not. I do worry about not earning enough money. I'll be honest. Smash the Super Chat and PayPal link. I've got a bill on the way. I keep telling people. But yeah, that's about the only stress I suffer. I'm not a big enough YouTuber to support myself, which means e-begging, which is embarrassing. But other than that, that's about the only real stress of doing this. I don't go away going, oh no, they told me after I pointed out that they haven't got an R value that you're going to have to assume a globe to get a straight line baseline to do an angle measurement with a sextant. They just said you're going to need a globe for that. No, I recognise what's occurring. Yeah? They're imitating us. All right, why? Well, I take that as a compliment. Highest form of flattery, in fact. But is that you're going to need a globe for that attached to a devastating argument that I'm losing sleep over? Oh, absolutely not. Just a baseless assertion, and done with lots of people saying it. Why? Well, because our devastating argument, Black Swan, with us saying you're going to need R from that, for that, yeah, we all got together at the behest of Mitchell to say you're going to need R from that, and in some cases he edited it out of videos. Well, you're going to need R for that has a devastating argument attached. When they just say you're going to need a globe for that, that is literally just them chanting that you're going to need a globe for that. Because there's no argument attached to that. It's just chanting.
the thing is, when they do that, you're going to need a globe for that. That our rebuttal still applies to their rebuttal. You're going to need an R for a globe. So when they say you're going to need a globe for that, yeah, you're still going to need an R value for the globe, morons. So it's not rebutting our rebuttal. It's just, like Nathan says, it is chanting because it's ignoring the requirement we're asking them to prove.
That's like their dumb housekeeping questions that we destroyed the day they came out with them. Bunch of morons.
Yeah.
What will you need a globe for? I'm sorry, I missed the first part of this. What will you be needing a globe for?
Triangulation. Sextant use, apparently, according to these dickheads, is requirement or is an antecedent consequent relationship that needs a globe. Something that literally is one of the few things that you could not do this on. You couldn't acquire a baseline from it.
Yeah, it's just chanting. Never mind.
It is just chanting. You're going to need a globe for that. Will we? No. Every description ever describes how you get a 90 degree to a triangle that you're making with the celestial item and a baseline. That's 2 straight lines. That's flat Earth. Circle, 2-dimensional, of equal altitude. Area of equal elevation. Yeah, these things aren't pointing towards curved surfaces moving away from you 8 inches per mile squared. Quite the contrary, in fact. If you had that, it wouldn't work anymore. So rather than you're going to need a globe for that, no, you're going to need 2 straight lines for it. It's an angle measuring device. But maybe you could chant it some more. Maybe get a few more fundies. Maybe get bigger names to chant that you're going to need a globe for that use of a sextant. Because that's really going to cost me some sleep. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but it's been terrible. I've been tossing and turning over, you're going to need a globe for that rebuttal. I mean, I really have been losing sleep over this. I'm sure you all agree.
It's the best thing they ever said. I'm still laughing.
Isn't that akin to like when the kid pointed out the emperor had no clothes on? The emperor going, well, you're naked too.
Yeah, it is just childish. It's a childish way of saying, no, need an R for that. Well, you're going to need a globe for that. It is absolutely pathetic. The fact that they're doing this in unison makes it chanting. Chanting a baseless assertion together doesn't mean you've got a devastating rebuttal attached to it. What you have got is a presupposition that the angle you take from the surface is moved to the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth when you bait and switch how it's done with how you will qualify it on a sphere when you beg the question that the angle's from the centre. Well, that's not how a sextant works. Very literally is not what you do.
One correction, on a circle, not a sphere. Because all it is an orthographic view of a circle that they show in those pictures with a central angle. They need the vertex. They need it to meet somewhere. They can't do it on the surface. No, how can we use the circle to represent a sphere and get our angles? I can't do it on the surface. Hey, let's take it to the middle and have it meet there. Yeah, but we're on the surface with the sextant. Yeah, but we'll switch that around. We're really doing it from the middle.
Sextants used to measure an angle on the surface with a straight flat baseline to the horizon and beyond to the GP of whatever star you're measuring so you can perform triangulation. That is its purpose. Now, when we point out that to do that triangulation with a triangle with 2 straight lines meeting at a vertex at your feet on the surface of Earth, that is not to say that you're going to need to transpose that to the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth. That's my rebuttal to you're going to need a globe for that. No, you're going to need to transpose an angle measurement that you take on the surface to the centre of your begging the question fallacy that you're on a spherical surface that wouldn't allow you to measure the angle you took from the surface to then move to the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth. We definitely don't have. We've debunked the R value you're moving it to with the black swan. So you don't have an R value to actually move this to your presuppositional centre of a presupposed spherical Earth after you've measured it on the surface, which is flat. Earth is obviously, observably, navigatably, and measurably flat.
I'd like to get Brian and Adam Meekin to comment on this since they were leading this charge. If you're actually taking it from the center, then you got to do dip correction for 3,959 miles, not 14 feet.
What's the point in doing dip correction on a globe? Like, if you're going to go to the center of it, It's complete and utterly brainless. You know, their dip correction happens from the bow of the boat when the horizon mirror is tilted towards the horizon. That's what they think dip correction is. You know, it's not. It's that after you do that, which is your initial angle, you then make it a right angle triangle by making the base horizontal, by bringing the vertex from your eye line down to the surface of the water underneath your boat. But what they do is they talk about the initial angle, which is the horizon mirror pointing towards the horizon, and then obviously you have the index mirror bringing the celestial object down to that. But then they try and do the horizon dip correction as you dipping your horizon mirror down to the horizon a second time. It's like, you're already dipping it down to the horizon. I think what they're trying to do is actually dip it down further to where a geometric horizon would be. I think that's kind of what they're talking about. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. That's all I could call it.
That is what they're doing. That's precisely what they're doing, Brian. They actually, or he, that would be Bob, asserted precisely that. Bob the science guy said, yes, we are indeed pointing down towards the geometric horizon. That's where they're acquiring their claim of a dip. No. That's all, as you correctly identified already, from the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth, making the dip totally irrelevant for their claim. But when they actually say, well, what are you going to point it at? Well, they're going to assume that you've got a geometric horizon and a straight line to it.
Yeah, that's the nail. So when they make those apologetics for the dip correction, in doing so, they make a definitive statement that the horizon is the leading edge of a ball. Yeah, because that's why you're pointing it to it and adjusting for it on a ball. Well, then the answer to that is Black Swan.
Exactly, that's where I had Virus. He was the first to fall victim to it, and I had him absolutely over the barrel on it. What's that you say? Straight line to the dip horizon that you've got on a globe now. Black Swan, bitch.
Actually, that's exactly how you said it, too.
Yeah. Well, what about the Black Swan? I've got no problem with the Black Swan. What, the thing that debunked your physical geometric horizon? Oh dear. Oh dear. You're going to appeal to that debunked geometric horizon now that used to be claimed to be blocking things, then was claimed to never be seen, but now is in requirement for your geometric assumptions from the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth with what you're claiming as dip. Oh, no. No, we've debunked that with the Black Swan. It's only been 22 months. Did you think by denying it with refraction, saying you haven't got one and don't need one because of refraction, would mean that 22 months later you could appeal to it for the sextant? Oh no, that'll get you what Virus had. Yeah, called a bitch and told the Black Swan is actually real. Calling it refracted also annihilates this position for your sextant claim. When you move it to the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth rather than the angle measurement on the surface. Yeah, it's a complete annihilation. Yeah, year of the sextant? No, age of the sextant. You're going nowhere. The globe's so dead and buried, and you've got nowhere to go. Well, you're going to appeal to some geometry that you denied for 22 months? I think not.
It's another double dip, isn't it? I can't remember what it was that you used to call it, the double dip, you and Anthony. I can't remember what that was you used to refer to before. It was before the Black Swan.
It was basically, I'll just summarise it in 30 seconds. The double dip is the assertion that if you're looking through a lens and you do have the very real effect of things getting smaller into the distance, hashtag shit shrinks, and you're also asserting that there's an Earth curve geometry falling away from your visible vantage point at 8 inches per mile squared, then you'd need to acquire both values, regardless of how, Rayleigh criterion for one perhaps, and the other being Earth curve, and apply them both. That would be a double dip rather than the single dip. Now, at that point, when we're pointing out that one seems to match what we observe, it's pretty clear that we do definitely have perspective, and we definitely don't have Earth curve. Hashtag nobody's expecting to see Earth curve geometry. the geometric horizon only exists in the maths. These are quotes from our opponents. So, notwithstanding that we don't have a geometric horizon, where the hell are you going to acquire one for this sextant measurement?
Yeah, well, now they do have a double dip. Then they at that time they weren't comparing the two things. They were only doing something, ignoring perspective and Rayleigh criterion, and just claiming our curve. Whereas now they're doing a dip, the initial dip to the horizon from the bow of a boat to get the initial angle. They're doing a second dip, which brings them below the real horizon, the optical horizon, down to a mathematical, in their own belief, horizon, a geometric horizon, and then they're calculating for that for absolutely no reason, because then they're bringing the angle to the center of their mathematical globe anyway. It just makes absolutely zero sense, because they don't change the, like, if I have to say this, if I bring the lens, if I tilt down the sextant so the horizon lens is towards the horizon, and I take an angle, if I then dip the sextant even further down, then that's going to change the initial angle. If I keep the same, if I was going to, how are they bringing the celestial object down to meet their a mathematical horizon? How do you bring a celestial object down to meet a mathematical horizon? You can't. So the horizon dip correction is completely pointless, crazy nonsense on their globe.
Well summarised.
Yeah.
But to be as well summarised as that is, Adam wins. Because Adam's pointing out where the nail in the coffin comes. As soon as they appeal back to their geometric horizon, or to a tangent point based horizon, a sagitta based horizon, anything that's got a straight line in it, black swan. Haven't you been around for the last 22 months when you appeal to geometric straight lines? Regardless if they're pointing down, number one, that's not how the sextant works. You're requiring a straight baseline. You won't get the 90 degree for what you've just described if you let them assume that it's pointing down when you match it up to their mathematical horizon that only exists in the maths to match the luminary in the lens. No. At that point, they're not getting 90 degrees, so let's just draw a line under that. They're not doing triangulation anymore. Maybe it's trilateration, right, Mr. Sensible, you fuckwit?
Well, I actually, when I spoke about this with Adam privately, when I say we disagreed, there wasn't like an angry disagreement. We just had a disagreement. And I disagreed about even bringing up the black swan at that point. Simply because I know that's what they want to argue about. They don't want to talk about the horizon dip correction. That's the last thing they want to talk about. But Adam said he didn't
disagree. I understand it, and you can see it in your head, the geometry in your head, and that's why it's so powerful. It's just a bugger to actually explain, but when you do see it, it is exactly that ridiculousness, and it's the similar sort of thing we're describing. The black swan supports it. What you're pointing out is the ridiculousness of it, with regards to drawing it to that leading edge. If you are drawing it to a leading edge, what are you drawing it to? What is your straight line even for, as Brian is saying then? It's totally right. It becomes a ridiculous, pointless line.
That they haven't gotten the black swan debunked.
Yeah.
So Anthony's just put up the double dip. This is 4 years ago, man. It's going back a while now, the Isle of Man discussion. But at this point, as I say, we called it the begging the question, perspective exclusive Earth curve calculator. Now that eventually got changed because when you realise that the effect very closely matches up with their mathematics, and even the numbers match up at 1.22 times the square root of the observer's height in feet versus 1.2 over wavelength or lambda or whatever it is with the Rayleigh criterion. You've got very similar mathematics. So it's not perspective exclusive. It's not ignoring perspective or leaving it out. It's completely hijacked perspective and called it Earth curve. And then when they need to fudge the numbers, they apply terrestrial refraction through sphere-shaped air and bend the light at a rate of r to make it as flat as possible. When in reality, things get smaller into the distance, and that effect is what they've hijacked. So this is the various different illustrations that Anthony was trying to make this point at the time when saying, well, your curve maths is an orthographic view. It absolutely, unequivocally excludes the effect of things getting smaller. You've got a feet and inches value for this mountain, and each of these mountains, as Anthony's depicted them, get smaller into the distance, exactly as we see. Well, their mathematics has it as a 200-foot mountain, and this mountain closest to the guy is 200 foot, and so is this one. Effectively removing any angular size reduction, that would be perspective. The fact that it gets smaller as it gets further away? Well, no, this is still 200 feet. So the fact that we've got an obstruction, then claimed to be Earth curve, that's the only cause. Well, you're like, hold on, it's got smaller. The angle to the bottom of it's reduced towards the deck and therefore has got to the point where you can't see the bottom first because it's the most limited angle. So therefore, that's Earth curve. Hold on, what about perspective? You're supposed to include that effect. Nah, they're never going to include it. Muppet vision, justification. It's geometric. Remember those days, lads, when we were told no perspective required, geometry rules. Until you debunk the geometry. And then it's all refracted. With R that they can't get anymore. Thank you, Anthony.
I remember when this first came out. That was so helpful and educational. Loved it.
Oh, thank you, Neil.
I think you missed a couple of super chats there.
I haven't got them on screen to see them. It's my bad. Until I get the projector working, I haven't got enough screen real estate to see the chat. I'm so sorry. I'm sure there's been a couple of times in the last few days. Shout out to Godzilla. At least I can read it on this lower resolution. The big screen gives me a nice big text readout. Finally, from the chat comes the globe Earth proof we've all been waiting for years. Ready? Question mark. FE is stupid. Rest in peace, FE. Ha ha ha. Thank you very much for the super chat, Godzilla. I really appreciate it. Also, Al Junkie. Know your position at sea? Question mark. You're going to need a star for that, with a capital R. Very good. Also, shout out to Sasha, or Unitox Femu. For cognitive pain, call 03959 blah blah blah. Yeah, indeed. I'll give out the helpline for cognitive dissonance-laden fundamentalist religious ball-believing zealots at the end of the show. There is a help centre available to anybody who needs to share their pain. There isn't really, I'm just joking. Shout out again to Unitox Femu, who says, whoever hurts cognitive pain hurts more. No, whatever hurts cognitive pain hurts more. I think he's sort of implying that if you break your leg, the mental anguish of cognitive dissonance is more. I'm going to disagree with you there and say a broken leg's probably more painful, but share your pain all the same. I think that's probably it. If I've missed anybody, I'm really sorry. I can't see any of the super chats as I'm scrolling up. So if I have missed you, I'm sorry. It's just scrolled off my list.
By the way, how was Zinda doing anyway? Did anybody check up on him?
Zinda was one of the people I was referring to earlier when I said that we were told that he couldn't cope and needed some time off from this very stressful arena that we're all in daily and quite happy, apart from a bit of infighting over maybe Arwen's behaviour or 10th man's pointing out of Arwen's behaviour or maybe my e-begging or people not liking it. We've even got a bit of an internal hustle at the moment going on between some of the people who are very prevalent in this subject, namely Russian Vids, Jeranism, Dearth, Richie from Boston and High Impact Vids. Is there anyone else who's now piled onto that list? Oh, Rob Skeever, I was told this morning by Anthony Riley, was being called out in some respect to 33s and lots of his videography. So there's so much going on internally at the moment that people are stressing on. Notice none of them are, oh no, this great globe proof. None of them. Absolutely none.
I'd like to
So,
say
Nathan,
something.
I started to read that link from Coffee Hose, and in the link it says, quote, "There's some small chance that maybe our understanding of gravity is wrong, and there's something slightly different about these experiments that causes the value to be different from other big G experiments, which would be really interesting." I said, well, no shite, because they can't prove it at all. It's not a fundamental constant. And here's a kicker. They use Newton's theory.
Newton didn't have a theory. But yeah, he keeps referring to these experiments. It's fascinating how you're analysing these experiments, but so far all he's done is made a claim, and then when you asked him to provide tests, the original assertion, he came back and described them as measurements, and then reasserted the exact same claim. Then, same thing, well, where's the tests? Where's the experiments? Where's the measurements? And he comes back and says, well, it seems that some people disagree with the experiments. Hello? Just give us the tests you're referring to so we can rip them out of your throat. That's what we're going to do. But you've actually got to cite something rather than these ethereal tests that might or might not be wrong, that are open for discussion and how they're being interpreted. What the hell are they?
Right. I think he's logged off, so I don't think I'm going to get any answer out of him for the rest of the day.
Shocking. There was me all full of hope. I was losing sleep over this.
It was just funny. I just started reading, I don't know, not even halfway through it, and they're claiming Newton's theory of gravity. Well, Einstein's already superseded it, so why are they working backwards?
And meanwhile, clouds? Gas not going down, go boom boom? Sulfur hexafluoride, you say? What, made in the magical sky clouds and going down boom boom because it's man-made and made on the ground? No, none of the gases are made up in the sky going down, go boom boom. That's why it's been superseded by... Who's doing that from the chat? Go on, Anthony.
Me. Don't mention that some things go up, Nathan. They can't talk about those gases that go up.
Okay, should I just go on camera and look up at the clouds with a wistful thought in my eye?
Nathan, can you weigh sulfur hexafluoride when it's not contained?
No, it's just subject to entropy, same as everything else, right? You might be able to create a differential. Maybe you could. I don't know. If you dropped a scale into a fish tank and then took some contained, so it wasn't filling the space, sulfur hexafluoride, and then maybe put a piece of cardboard over it or something to stop it leaking out when it stopped being contained, and then you transferred the gas from the container into the fish tank, another container, and then temporarily removed the cardboard so that you could drop in a scale. Maybe it would show a higher value. I don't know. How would you tear it? Just tear it outside and then put it in, and then wouldn't that invalidate when you talk?
It can't be done. Can't be done. Gas doesn't have one single vector. It has every vector, so it's impossible to weigh a gas when it's uncontained. Gas doesn't have weight.
Oh, I see.
Within the convention of weight.
I gotcha. So what you're saying is, even if I managed to drop a scale into that fish tank, all I'd be doing is measuring the force, that would be pressure, that was exerted on the scale in a downward vector. However, at the same exact time, there are other sulfur hexafluoride parts that are going up.
Yeah, it's going in every possible vector all the time. So you can't weigh it in its natural state, any gas, regardless of how dense it is. Once it's in a gaseous state, that means it's unbonded, and all those independent entities move about in every direction at a high rate. So you can't weigh it.
Right.
So, it's like I was talking with Spurs yesterday or the day before, and a 2-litre bottle of pop is all you need to demonstrate that we can't be living in a vacuum of space. Because, like, when you have the top off the bottle, the pop inside goes flat. Why is it that the gas molecules are coming out of that bottle? They're going up. They're not going down, are they? And when you put the lid on, over time, pressure begins to build on the inside. And next time you take the top off, it'll go tss. Well, why does it do that? It's because the pressure begins to pressure begins to build, and then when you release that pressure, because you've got a hole in the top, it immediately disperses. Well, why doesn't that happen to the Earth in space? Because we've got pressure here. There's supposed to be a vacuum over there. Why is it not doing that?
I put that to an anti-flat Earth fundy. Do you know what they did?
Go on.
They just denied it was flat.
Well,
I got it, Nathan. I got it, Nathan.
Well, they did a test back to like the fish tank and putting a scale in. They, when they have underground tunnels or underwater tunnels that boats travel over, they wanted to see if the boat displacing the water would push down and cause pressure on the tunnel. and it doesn't. So even like you said, the displacement vector are in all directions, but it has no actual impact on the weight from the boat and the water pushing down on it. So even still, there's no weight, no nothing.
Sure, but but to speak to what Brian has sort of qualified that with, or responded to that with, is just say that when you've got something that's travelling in all vectors, to say, well, what's the weight of it? Well, what is weight? Well, you're qualifying something as having a downward vector immediately. Well, okay, if you could show a reading, it's like, well, what about the one that's moving away from it? You know, its behaviour by its nature defies it being weighed. That's the point that Brian's making.
Yeah, if you
I understand.
If you surround a weighing scales with sulfur hexafluoride, as soon as you put any solid or any liquid at all and you drop it onto that scales, it's going to weigh the object or the substance, whether it be liquid, like a drop of water, if it's a small scales, or a normal size scales, like it'll weigh a coffee cup, a brick, whatever. But and the same thing if people are using water, nothing has weight unless it has a singular downward vector. Gas doesn't have that. So because gas doesn't have that, you can't claim gas has weight. You can put it into a container and weigh it with the container, and then weigh the container without it. And because gas has substance, and it has, I suppose you could call it magnitude, it, like, you can weigh the container with the gas inside of it, which is adding more density to the container. That's what you're doing. You're adding density to something that was empty. Now you're adding gas in, a high concentration of gas in, that's more concentrated than the air that would have been in the container. So you're adding density to the internals of the container, and then you can weigh that. But in its natural state, it can't be weighed. And the absolute killer, and I just don't know why more people aren't taking this on board. The absolute killer for a force of gravity is that objects in a vacuum weigh more. For them and their claim, objects in a vacuum has to weigh less for a force of gravity. Not Einstein's relativity now, but a force of gravity. For that to exist, as they say, then the air has to have a downward weight. And they claim it has, and that's how they have their pressure gradient throughout their atmosphere, is through gravity giving weight to the gases.
Meanwhile, gas does not go down, go boom boom. But with that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. I've been Nathan Oakley. Stay tuned if you're watching on a Premiering stream once again. I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!